Hi there, my name is Guidry, and today I'm going to be talking with you all about how to improve your flatlays. If you are someone who struggles with your flatlays, you're not sure how to improve your styling and improve your images, that's exactly what we're going to be talking about in this episode. I also want you to know that I have a free posing guide, a free pricing guide. We're not going to be able to touch on those subjects today, but feel free to download those in the description. The first thing that you're going to want to have with you if you want to improve your flatlays is a styling mat. This styling mat that you see here is from a company called Chasing Stone, and this is actually a hand-painted backdrop. It's a very neutral white, and I keep it on this roll that came with it. I also purchased this bag just to keep it in, and I like this particular styling mat because it's really small. I used to have a styling mat from this company called The Styling Mat, but they actually are no longer selling their styling mats, and so this is the one that I'm using currently. I love that it has a little bit of a texture, and it just provides a really neutral backdrop for my photos. If you have a wedding that's a little bit more dark and moody, maybe you do photograph the stationery or the details on a wood floor or something that has a little bit more texture. But oftentimes the clients that I'm photographing for have very bright, neutral, classic weddings and color palettes. And so this styling mat really does work beautifully. Even if I'm at a beautiful luxury hotel like the Four Seasons or the Ritz-Carlton, oftentimes I'm giving patterns like very patterned carpets or maybe colors that don't match the overall style of the wedding. That's when the styling mat really comes in handy, and so you want to keep one of these on hand. The next thing that I'm going to encourage you to have when you're trying to up-level your flatlays is going to be some styling blocks. These, I don't know if you guys can see them, they're just clear styling blocks. I have them in a variety of different sizes and thicknesses. These are from a company called Sourced Co. I even have like some little bitty ones, some little bitty blocks. These are really great, not just for stationery, but even to prop up the bouquet or any other details that you might be photographing. But especially when you're photographing the invitations, having the styling blocks gives a little bit of dimension to the paper goods. It creates shadow lines and it doesn't leave the stationery feeling quite as flat in the image. So highly recommend a set of styling blocks. If you're not in a position to purchase styling blocks yet, I have used a variety of things on a wedding day. Matchboxes, lens caps, you name it, I've done it. I just really love the styling blocks at this point because they're clear. If for whatever reason they do stick out a little bit, and they come in this like small bag, and so they're just really easy and portable to bring along with me. When you go to photograph your details, the first thing that you want to do is ask permission from the hair and makeup if they're wrapping up, from the wedding party, if you can turn off the artificial light surrounding the location that you're going to photograph your flatlays. The reason why you want to do this is because if you're getting natural light, which tends to be a little bit more blue, and you have on artificial light, which tends to be a little bit more orange, then it's going to create an orange or a yellow cast on your details. You really want all the lighting to be very consistent. So when I'm determining the location, that's going to be the next tip, is that I'm looking for window light. I'm going to scan the room and find the, most beautiful, soft window light, preferably somewhere out of the way. You don't want to set up right next to where the makeup artist is or anything like that, because people are going to be walking around. You don't want them walking on your details, especially if you're photographing their rings. And so I look for a window that's out of the way, that's got some good soft light, and then I turn off all the artificial light surrounding it. And then I set up my styling mat. You want your styling mat to be facing toward the window, where if you are my window, the styling mat comes next, and then my feet pointed toward the window. So your feet are pointing toward the window, and the styling mat is going to be between your feet and the window. That way, when you're looking down and you're photographing that flat lay, you don't have any shadows being cast on top of the stationery or the paper goods. It's not abnormal for me to arrive to a wedding day where the wedding planner or the coordinator has already styled some of the details. Don't be shy to let them know that you prefer a different lighting arrangement for the positioning of the stationery or the details. In fact, I know they'll thank you for that. Just be super careful, have them assist you, and turn it to where the top of the flat lay is closest to the window and the bottom of the flat lay is closest to your feet. That way you're not going to cast any shadows on the details. When it comes to determining what you're gonna put in the flat lay, I want you to start to group the different items according to what looks best together. Even if there's a detail that maybe you don't want to include in your portfolio per se. I like to take Jose Villa's approach. He always says one for thee and one for me. So I'm going to photograph those details for the client. I'm going to make sure that all of those details are included somewhere, some way, but when I go to style them for my own portfolio or for publication's sake, I'm going to include the details that look the best together. When I'm photographing the details, for example, at the reception, maybe the planner wants me to beautifully style the reception details, any special custom napkins or party favors or, drink stirs. A lot of times they'll have them kind of gathered beforehand. We are going to group those things together. I wouldn't necessarily put those, for example, with the welcome bags. The welcome bags would be styled an image all in of itself. And so when I'm determining what goes into a photo, I try to group things together that tend to present themselves together at that different part of the day. So for example, if I'm photographing the bride's details, the wedding shoes, the wedding jewelry, all of those things, they're all gonna be part of the bride's getting ready at the same time, her veil, her dress. And so I tend to group those things together in the flat lays. Even with the invitations, I might photograph the invitation suite with the program and maybe even the menu cards, and then maybe I'll do a version with only the program and the stationery from the invite, and then maybe one with just the invitation. That way you have some different options and the publication or the bride can choose which images she or the groom most prefer after the wedding. When you actually start arranging your details, specifically the stationery, I want you to pay particular attention to the spacing. Try not to leave too big of gaps in between the paper goods. This is one of the first things that I often see in up-and-coming photographers when I'm reviewing their portfolio. I'm looking at their stationery images and I'm seeing big gaps and inconsistent gaps. When you're styling, try to move the objects toward the center and toward each other. You want everything in the image to have a relationship. In addition, one of the things that I learned years ago is that oftentimes publications are looking for vertical images, as is Instagram and most of the social platforms right now. And so when I'm photographing and styling the details, I try to make them a little bit more linear versus a horizontal flat lay. I can feel myself sometimes as I'm laying things out, trying to fit everything in, and maybe it starts to spread out, but really group those things together and grow your flat lay vertically so that when you photograph that image, you can shoot it vertically and post it on Instagram and your stories and all of those things. Another thing that you can incorporate that I don't actually have here with me in this exact moment would be styling blooms. Communicate in advance to the client that you're planning to style and photograph their details on the day of the wedding. And that one of the things that can really help to make those images extra beautiful or loose styling blooms. Florists for a nominal fee can oftentimes include a few extra styling blooms that you can incorporate into the detail photos. When I'm laying out the styling blooms, sometimes I will cluster them together. I'll usually do that in sets of 3. I think seeing a series of florals that kind of repeat throughout the stationery looks really beautiful. Or oftentimes I'll even break apart a floral piece or some sort of organic greenery and break it apart into the flat lay just to give it a little bit more dimension and character. But the styling blooms are a really great addition to, the styling mat and the styling blocks. I even had this ring box that I brought along just to show you that I have this with me just in case I ever want to add this in. It's really neutral. And if the client doesn't have a ring box and they want to use it, I can use that, or maybe they'll have one with them. So having those things on hand is nice, but you don't want to incorporate things that aren't theirs or don't fit the day. We try to really keep the details as authentic and fitting to the client as possible. And the last thing that you want to do is when you go to photograph the details, so you've got everything set up, you've got the lighting right, and you're about to take this picture, you want to make sure that you're including both an overall photo as well as close-up photos in the gallery for the client. So, you have that beautiful overall styled image, but you also have those close-ups where they can, physically read what their invitation says or see the detail of the rings and things like that. When it comes to setting your camera for these photos, I would encourage you to try an aperture of around f4 so that, especially for the stationary, it does become legible. I interviewed a stationer years ago on our podcast, Mistakes Make Magic, and that was one of the things that she said. She said that she loves the beautiful, bright and airy imagery, but she wished that you could actually see the texture of the letters and the fonts that were used. So we want to make sure that we're doing right by the client and also right by the vendors by photographing these details in the most beautiful way. I hope you find this helpful. If you're enjoying these videos, please be sure to subscribe, leave any questions or comments below, and I'll see you in the next episode.